Hi friend, do you ever feel like standard leadership advice just doesn't work for you? Well, welcome to Leadership from Within. In this podcast, we will discover your unique leadership style. We dive into the world of MBTI and Big Five. We shape leadership strategies that truly fit you. Join us on this journey to find out the one-of-a-kind leader you are. Let's get started. In the second half of our talk with Jay, he kicked things off by diving into how he taps into his natural strengths as a leader. You get to see how his intuition and adaptability really come into play in his approach to leadership.
I can see a big picture very quickly. And I tend to be able to break things down so individuals can see that big picture, even if they can't see it themselves. So I can start to break down and look at teams and say, this is how we're going to achieve our big goal by contributing these smaller milestones and checking in along the way, making sure everybody's doing the right things and finding the right opportunity. Yeah, I don't think I was a natural leader along the way. My dad owned an appliance store, and growing up, he wanted me to be a salesman, and the dude was a rock star salesman. He just knew everything about product. He knew how to relate with customers. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert, and I just didn't have that. I didn't have that salesman style, and I didn't have the voice, and I wasn't able to just project that image right away because I'm an introverted thinker. Along the way, I have forced myself to come out of my shell. I forced myself to be adaptable, agile. I forced myself to understand what leadership qualities were that I admired and changed my view of what a leader is, I think, along the way. Sometimes the leader isn't the loudest person in the room. Sometimes it's the person that wants to listen, and it's the person who can represent the vision and get the team excited about it. One of the most important things to me throughout my career was making sure that I was up for any new challenge. That has taken me to 8 different moves. I've been to 49 different states. I've been to 36 different countries. I've lived in 3 different countries. I've lived in 8 different states. And each time a role came up that was a challenge, I was the first person to raise my hand and say, let's go do that. Let's figure out how to do it. And that meant shifting roles, shifting responsibilities, learning new teams. It's one of my favorite things to do is to build a team and to build a structure and to make myself learn something new. The big change from my career perspective was making sure that I wrote down goals. I break things down into 5-year goals, 3-year goals, and then I write down and make sure I do month by month whether I'm meeting them.
I then asked Jay how his early career shaped his leadership principles. He responded with a really good story.
Very early on in my career, I took on a role as a technology programmer. And I ended up moving to a different state, and I ended up designing a system. And the manager who I was working for was very structured in her approach. And probably, when I look back on it, probably had a really good vision for what she wanted to establish. It didn't come across, though, and it didn't work for me because she wanted everybody, particularly me, to work in her style. And I think that was probably a really good learning for me very early on, is that my style is different than your style is going to be different than the next person's style. That doesn't make it wrong. And if you find a way of working with individual style to be successful, it's a better way of operating. And I think that was a really big learning experience for me, that I knew I was doing the right things, but I wasn't doing it in her way. And so we just clashed a lot, and the project crashed completely. Looking back on it, I think that really helped me to establish not forcing my style on somebody else.
Emerging leaders often lean on instructions. When facing new situations, they might get stuck if there's no guide. I asked Jay how he solved the problem when there's no clear direction.
Yeah, a lot of times I will look to teammates people who work on my team, people who work for me, people who I work for, and ask them questions about experience that they've had in the past. I'll also look to put a situation that works for me and see if I can apply that elsewhere. For example, if I'm working on a project and a client asks me to redesign a system for a better user experience, I'll start asking younger members of the team, how do they use apps? How do they use software? What's going to get them the best user experience? And then try to apply that to some of the work that we're doing. So it's all about asking the right questions and finding the right answers.
I also asked Jay when he first felt like he was able to develop his own leadership principle.
The turning point for me was making senior manager. It's a breaking point in the accounting industry where you can separate I'm a leader of leaders versus I'm a leader of a team. I believe strongly that my role from that point forward was to build other leaders. And in order to build other leaders, I had to become a stronger leader. I had to reach out to more people. I had to find new ways and new opportunities to help other people grow, which was the best way to help me grow.
Jay also talked about how crucial mentors have been in his journey to develop as a leader.
I've had tons of mentors along the way. I still have mentors. I still have people that I talk to that are great visionaries. I have people that I talk to that help me solve problems. Yeah, I try to learn from everybody. I try to learn from people who I admire and want to be like. And I have people that I don't necessarily want to be like, but they teach me too, because they teach me the things I don't want to do. I've been very lucky in my career and having people that really care about me and care about helping me grow, whether that's in client activity or that's just building teams or that's telling me when, hey, Jay, you're on the wrong path here. You should try something different.
How did Jay go about finding his mentors? He walked us through his experience, sharing all the details.
I think that I have been fortunate to be placed on projects where the leader of the project has taken an interest in me. That happened earlier on in my career, and that helped me to formulate what kind of a leader I wanted to be. As I've gotten more experience, I've sought out leaders, I've sought out individuals, and either written them a quick email or given a call on the phone and asked them about their experiences or talked to them about a project or found an opportunity to sit down with coffee and just tell me about what experiences you've had that have made you successful.
Jay emphasized that the learning shouldn't stop. Even as a young leader becomes more experienced, it's crucial to keep learning.
Every day, particularly right now in the technology world where we're learning about where AI is going to be, where we're learning about LLMs, large language models, where we're learning what's going to be different in the world tomorrow. Every day, and I don't just learn from my team members, I learn from individuals who are in leadership positions. I learn from individuals that are just coming out of college. I learn from my kids. In order to stretch as a leader, you have to be open to the idea that you don't know everything. You have to be open to the idea that there are smarter people in specific areas out there that are just going to know more because they're coming up and they've learned it in school, or they're coming up and they've had experiences in projects that you haven't been involved in yet. But there is absolutely no doubt about it. The day I stopped learning, that's the day I quit.
Jay didn't stop there. He shared another essential tip for young leaders who want to keep growing.
Decisions are put to the test every day. People want to take shortcuts. People want to find opportunities to shine. People want to make sure that their voice is the loudest voice in the room. It doesn't always work, but leadership is put to the test when you make the right decisions, even though they're the hard decisions. Making sure people understand how to, well, in our case, particularly why, making sure time is accurately charged. It's one of the hardest things to learn as a staff, because people are asking constantly, how do you become better at your job? How do you become more efficient at your job? How do you get value add for your job? But understanding why and how people charge time is so important.
Jay also shared insights on the shift from being a young leader to taking on a more experienced role, guiding the next generation. He offered advice for those starting this journey.
I think it's a matter of trusting other individuals. Again, it's relying on people's strengths, and it's finding the thing that's going to make them successful, personally successful. If that means a bigger job title, if that means bigger money, if that means more family time, it depends on what they believe is going to make them successful, and then capitalizing on that, making sure that they understand the value that they're providing, and working with them to show them what leadership means to them, not to me, to them. How do they build stronger teams? How do they get that personal achievement? Because in the end, that's going to make them the best leader that they could possibly be.
Jay isn't just about developing his own leadership skills. He's got some tips on nurturing leadership qualities in kids from an early age. What does he think is crucial?
I do think it's important that people can articulate a thought. I do think it's important to be able to express your own ideas. I do think it's important to be the person in the room that is willing to say, that's not how I feel, that's not my value, and that's not the right way to go about it, even if you're wrong. The kids had business camp every summer. We made them do presentations. That meant that they had to get up in front of the family, they had to use PowerPoint, and they had to speak for at least 10 or 15 minutes. And we started it from a very early age. We wanted to make sure that they were articulate. We wanted to make sure that they made a point, and we want to make sure that they were confident in speaking in front of people.
As we wrapped up our conversation, I got Jay to talk about a personal hobby that he believes has played a part in his leadership development. His answer was quite fascinating.
I play a lot of racquetball. I work hard at developing relationships with the players. I do think about strategies, whether or not it's on the court or off the court. I think about what's the best opportunity to be able to make me successful by learning the other individual's weaknesses or strengths.
Thanks for being with us today on Leadership from Within. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to empower your leadership journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with others. And remember, if you have any specific questions about leadership, we're just an email away. See you in the next one.